Okay guys, today we're going to look at understanding AC electricity. And so if you think of electrical signals, like what two types of electricity do you have? DC. Okay, DC and AC. What does DC stand for? Direct current. Now really it's voltage. It would have been better to say direct voltage, but they call it direct current. I don't know why, just because that's what they've always done. And AC is what? Alternating current. Alternating current. Okay. With DC, does it change? Okay. So if I look at a graph of voltage, let's say that I had 10 volts DC. If I looked at voltage versus time, what would it look like? Just a line, because it doesn't change. So like a battery would be DC, say 10 volts. Now maybe over time, maybe the battery starts going down and maybe it very slowly goes down. But in a given period of time, the voltage is constant. What's different about alternating current electricity? It's a sine wave, okay? So it is constantly changing. So let's think of a sine wave. We go from 0 to 2 pi. And then what's half of 2 pi? Pi. And then what's half of that? Pi over 2. So what do I count by?
Pi.
Okay, count with me.
1 pi over 2. 2 pi over 2. 3 pi over 2.
4 pi over 2, right? So 1 pi over 2, 2 pi over 2, 3 pi over 2, 4 pi over 2. 1 pi over 2 is pi over 2. 2 pi over 2 is pi. 3 pi over 2 is 3 pi over 2. 4 pi over 2 is 2 pi. Then what happens? It repeats itself. Now how can we kind of generate, so you know DC, you've got that. So how can I kind of generate that curve? I've got, what are my 4 key points I need to do for 0, pi over 2, pi, 3 pi over 2, and 2 pi. You take the period and you divide it into 4 pieces, and then you figure each one of those 4, and then you can draw the smooth curve between it. So what should I think of in order to generate that? In order to generate that sine wave, I should think of what? Somebody, Josie, what should I think of? Okay. In order to generate the sine wave from scratch, what should I think about? I create an axis and then I should think about what? Okay, somebody else. Somebody, what do we think about, Logan?
How many, like, what we need to do to go around?
Yes, so I'm going to have like a vector and I'm going to go around. And is sine the y value or the x value? Sine is y. Sine of the, let's say sine of the angle is equal to y. So, how long is my pen? We're going to say it's how long? 1. Okay? So it would be there. It would be there. It would be there. And it would be there, okay? What angle am I at here? What is the angle? 0. What is the angle here? 90, which is what in radians?
Pi.
Not pi.
Pi
over 2. And then what? Pi, which is 2 pi over 2. Pi. And then what's this?
3 pi over 2.
3 pi over 2. And then this is what? 2 pi. So once I get to 2 pi, what does sine do? It repeats, right? It repeats, everyone. So I'm looking for the x value or the y value? Y. So at 0, what is the y value? 0, right? And it's going to go between 1 and -1. So at 0, I'm where?
0.
Okay, Logan, at what, I'm where? Okay, I start where? What's my angle, Logan?
0.
And what's my y value?
0.
0. Say it loud.
0.
And what? My angle is what?
0 and 0.
0 and 0. What's my angle?
2 pi.
What?
1 and 2 pi.
It's what?
1.
Now, what is the angle?
2 pi. What pi over 2? I know
Okay.
pi over 2.
Okay, so, and why am I having you say it out loud so you'll understand it, right?
I
So-
know what I'm seeing,
Yeah.
I just wasn't saying it.
That's okay. So should you be embarrassed or not?
No.
You should not be embarrassed at all. So why do I get you? Because if you say it out loud, then you'll make sure that you understand it, okay? So tell me where I am here. An angle of
0.
and a y value of what?
0.
Where am I here?
1 and pi over 2.
Yeah, at pi over 2. Say it first, the angle is what?
Pi over 2.
And what's the y value?
1.
Okay, so at pi over 2, I come up to 1. Right? Okay, Josie, what angle am I at here?
180.
What units are we in?
Pi.
Pi. And what's my y value at pi?
0.
So what should I put here? At pi, I should put what? At where?
0.
At 0. Okay, Jaden, where am I down here?
3 pi over 2,
And what's my y value?
-1.
Okay, so I'm down here. And then Mario, I'm coming back to where? 0, right? So it's going to go like this. It's going to go to 1, it's going to go to 0, it's going to go to -1, and then it's going to go to 0. That is a sine wave. Okay, that is the sine wave. Now, really, what we call this an angle, but really with electricity, this axis is what? This axis is in voltage, but what's this axis? It's in what units? Time. So this is time. Like you could measure how long does it take to go there. What do we, and this would keep going, right? What do we call one cycle? We call it a what?
Period.
It's a period. It's a period. And in general, if I have y is equal to a times sine of b times t, let's say a is equal, or y is equal to, or it's not y, it's really what? Voltage. Voltage is equal to some constant a. Levi, you got to look up here, okay? Voltage is equal to some constant a times sine of bt. Now the first thing that I need to know about this wave is I need to know it's what?
Period.
It's period, okay? And so what is the period going to be?
2 pi.
2 pi what?
2 pi over b.
2 pi divided by b. Now over here when I just had sine of x, if I had just sine of x, b was what?
1.
1. So then in this case the period was what?
2 pi?
2 pi. Okay. But if I had sine of 2x, the period would be what?
2 pi over 2, so
Pi. And in that case, it would have to go up and down and back between 0 and pi. Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right. The period is 2 pi over b. But like when you talk about electricity, AC electricity, you don't talk about the period. What parameter do you use when you're talking about electricity? Yeah, hertz is frequency. Okay, it's frequency. And frequency, how is frequency related to period?
Frequency equals 1 over the period.
It's 1 over the period. Okay, because like if I say that one period is 1/10 of a second, how many periods, how many cycles could I do in a second?
1 over 1/10.
Yeah, 1 over 1/10 would be 10, right? So if each period takes 1/10 of a second, I could do 10 of them in a second. And so that would be 10 cycles 10 cycles per second. Okay, do you understand that? 10 cycles per second? Or we would call it 10 hertz. Cycles per second and hertz are the same thing. So frequency is equal to 1 over p, and it's in units of hertz, Hz, or it's in units of cycles per second. Okay. And now what does this A do? Like if I had V is equal to 10 sine of t, what would this 10 do to our sine wave? The 10's outside.
It would make it to where it
go
started.
up to 10.
Yeah, it would go way up here to 10 and way down to negative 10, but does it impact the period? No. So it would just be going like that. Okay, it'd go up to 10 and down to negative 10. So this is what we call the amplitude. The amplitude, and then this B is not the period, right? But you get the period from B, okay? And then once you have the period, you can get the what?
Frequency.
The frequency. Okay, so now for the AC electricity that is coming out of the wall, believe it or not, it is, let me see here. It is
What are you looking
the AC electricity is 170 volts at the peak. Okay, so the AC electricity goes from 170 volts to minus 170 volts back to 170 volts. Does that make, I guess I didn't draw it right. So it goes to 170 minus 170. So you see this is 170. This is minus 170. So what is A for the electricity coming out of the wall? 170. Okay. And I will tell you something else. The frequency is equal to 60 hertz. So now, what I want you to do is go into Excel and graph one cycle of AC electricity. Okay? Your amplitude is going to need to be what?
170.
And your frequency is what?
60.
60. Okay. But what you really got to figure out is, so you know A is 170, you really have to figure out what?
B.
B. Did I tell you B? No, I told you what? I told you what?
T.
No, I didn't tell you T.
Oh.
I told you what?
Frequency.
So from frequency, you're going to have to figure out what? What?
The period. And
The period. And then once you have the period, then you're going to have to figure out what?
B.
B. Okay, so tell me what you have to do, Logan, out loud. I gave you frequency. What do you have to do?
You have to find the period, and then you have to
You find the period from what?
frequency,
Okay, and then now you have the period. Now you have to do what?
figure out what B is.
Okay, and now that you have B and A, you can graph it in Excel. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So that's due tomorrow. All right, thank you.